Mike Krzyzewski is back on the Duke sideline just in the nick of time for his number 21 Blue Devils to square off with Wake Forest, which is looking to win at Cameron for the first time since Tim Duncan was patrolling the paint for the Demon Deacons. And with that, we say hello and thanks for joining us with Dan Bonner, Mike Monaco from our homes. And Dan, Duke eked out a win on Wednesday against Boston College without Coach K, thanks in large part to sophomore Wendell Moore.
Mike, you're right. They didn't bring Mike Krzyzewski, but they did bring Wendell Moore, and Wendell Moore was the key guy. He had 25 points. He made 2 3-point baskets. He had 4 rebounds. He had an assist. He had 3 steals. And so this young man, this is the kind of game they were hoping they had. He made this big shot at the end of the game that really helped seal the deal. And so they hope they have the same Wendell Moore today. And for Wake Forest, they're bringing Isaiah Musius. He's their leading scorer and rebounder. He's a young man who's had a very good year so far, has been hard to guard for ACC opponents, and Steve Forbes is certainly hoping Musius brings his best game with him today. It'll be important.
Well, Mike Krzyzewski missed the game on Wednesday. He was in quarantine, a positive test in the family. And Mike Krzyzewski back on this Duke sideline, went in to get tested at 6 a.m. today. Another negative test for him. He was at shoot-around with his Duke team and ready to go against Wake Forest. Off we go from Cameron Indoor. Matthew Hurt gets the first touch and the first points for the ACC's leading scorer.
And Matthew Hurt is a young man who's having a pretty good season so far. He's, you say, the leading scorer in the ACC, the 3rd leading rebounder.
Carter Witt dumps it off down low to Odi Oguama. Can't score over Mark Williams, who rips down the rebound.
Wake Forest opens in the man-to-man defense.
Entry pass for Williams, and has it taken away. Oguama on the deck to go get it. And still no whistle. Jamie Luckey saying, hey, I can't call a held ball until you both grab it.
Well, now is it a held ball or is it a 5-second? Or is it a 5-second violation? Okay, they called it a held ball, and so Wake has the possession. I think that's a nice job by Oguama to just get the held ball because it was Wake's possession. That way he didn't waste the timeout. A lot of times you see guys call that timeout there. You don't need that timeout.
And Wake comes back quickly the other way, trying to handle the pressure. It's another starting lineup for Steve Forbes that is shuffled today. Davian Williamson, 4 in the black, returns for Wake. There's a long 2 from the perimeter, and it drops for Isaiah Musius. You said he's going to be important today, Dan.
Well, Musius is a guy who can play from a number of different spots. He's better when he's inside the arc, and you get a look at the Duke starting lineup. They've had a lot of changes over their game so far, too.
Hurt cans a 3, and he's got the first 5 for the Blue Devils.
Well, here's the Duke pressure, and this is what concerns Wake Forest as much as anything. Duke is a team that likes to get up. They get after you. They're physical.
Yeah, Steve Forbes said he has so much respect for the guards, Goldwire, Stewart, Roach, and the pressure that they put on him. We saw that with Duke against Boston College in a comeback effort, and Wake turns it over out of bounds along the sideline.
And we've mentioned Matthew Hurt, the leading scorer in the Atlantic Coast Conference. He comes in with the reputation as being an elite shooter. He's certainly a gifted scorer. He's bigger and stronger than he was last year, and that helps him play in the post. You can't really be an inside-out guy unless you can play both inside and out, and Matthew Hurt is much better equipped to do that this year.
Williams an offensive rebound, but it kicks off of his leg and goes back to Wake Forest. Yeah, from Hurt so far, Dan, we've seen both the inside, that fadeaway early on in the game, and then the outside, the three-point shot that he knocked down as well.
Well, in addition to that fadeaway, he can actually play with his back to the basket now. He's got some post moves that he can put on you.
He's got all 5 for Duke, leading by 3 just over 2 minutes in here at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Wake Forest at 0-2 so far in ACC action, coming off a loss in Charlottesville against Virginia on Wednesday, a game that they actually led by a dozen in the first half. Odi Oguama going to work with 2 for the Demon Deacons.
Oguama is a big, strong kid, and even though he's given away some size to Williams on the inside, he used his muscle to create enough space where he could make that little hook shot.
Williams throws it away in search of a cutting Hurt, and it's a Duke turnover. Mike Krzyzewski back on the sideline telling Mark Williams to settle down here in the game's first few minutes as Jamin Brakefield checks in for Duke and Jacoby Neath for the Deacons.
A little bit of concern for Duke in their first 5 possessions. They've turned it over 3 times. When you have more turnovers than field goals, that's generally not a good sign, but of course the Blue Devils lead.
Carter Witt is at the controls for Wake Forest, and he streaks to the basket and is blocked by Brakefield. In off the bench and a defensive stand for the freshman Brakefield.
Brakefield is really a versatile player. Obviously, I thought he just tracks Witt all the way to the basket. Witt thought he had a wide open lane, and he did, but Brakefield caught up with him.
Well, and if you're Carter Witt, that's a little bit different than what life was like a few weeks ago when he graduated high school on December 18th. And he's got 2, and he's got Wake Forest in front early on.
You got to say, he's not afraid.
Thrown right into the fire. Here's that back to the basket from Hurt, just carving out some space around Mucius for 2, and all 7 for the Blue Devils belong to Matt Hurt.
Steve Forbes is going to have to figure out a way for his guys to guard Matthew Hurt. But we've seen Hurt. We've seen him a little turnaround in basically the mid-range, a post move with his back to the basket, and a 3-point shot.
He's coming off a double-double in the win over Boston College here on Wednesday. Mucius loves to stroke it from 3, and he drills it. And for Mucius, just his 3rd make, though he has attempted a lot from beyond the arc.
He likes to shoot it. He likes to shoot it. I don't know about stroke it. Steve Forbes would rather make more, but certainly that was great ball movement against the Duke defense.
And 5 for Mucius, who has ticked up with his scoring recently, coming off 14 against Virginia and 21 against Georgia Tech on Sunday. Stewart with 2, and we are level at 9.
This Blue Devil pressure has only yielded 1 turnover so far. The Deacs have handled it well. They've been able to get into their offense.
Oguama had it poked away. There's turnover number 2. Jordan Goldwire. And it finds Stewart.
Goldwire is the ACC leader in steals, and you saw a perfect example of why great anticipation.
Witt got it out of traffic, able to find Jacoby Neath.
I don't know how he got it out of there, Mike.
Man, it is terrifying going up against Jordan Goldwire on the defensive end. There's Davian Williamson with 2, junior from Winston-Salem, and a transfer who came to Wake Forest with Steve Forbes from East Tennessee State.
One thing that has to be a little concerning for the Duke coaching staff right at the moment is Wake has been able to beat the Blue Devils on the perimeter and get inside.
Hurt's first miss, and Goldwire scraps for the loose ball. In the mid-range with 2 for Jordan Goldwire.
Boy, he's always around the ball. He can really find it, that time on a rebound situation.
Timeout on the floor in Durham. 2-point game. That Coach Mike Krzyzewski was not able to coach the team on Wednesday in quarantine, though he had tested negative. So this was his setup as they streamed practices into his home. The top of the screen there was the team practicing at the K Center. And Mike Krzyzewski, after going through everything virtually for the past week, Dan, he's back on the sideline.
Well, he may have been going through it virtually, but you could see there he was texting on his phone, and what John Shire told us is Mike Krzyzewski was watching practice through a setup that they were able to make. Zach Marcus, the video guy, set it up so that they could feed the practice video into Mike Krzyzewski's home. And Mike Krzyzewski was sitting there watching the practice, texting Chris Carrawell while the practice was going on.
Yeah, Coach Carrawell would be the one fielding the texts, sometimes phone calls during practice, and then you saw the shot of John Shire and Coach K there on the sideline. John Shire also told us that during the game Wednesday against Boston College, they actually had about a minute phone call at halftime of that game with Mike Krzyzewski calling in from home. And John Shire said to us the tone was very different in the halftime call with Coach K than the post-game calls with Coach K. Mike Krzyzewski came in at 6 a.m. today for a test. He has been testing negative. And Duke had it shoot around at 9 a.m. Coach K was there for that and ready to go. As Brakefield misses and Wake Forest controls down by 2.
Wake has turned it over a couple times. Each team has started out shooting the ball very well, but turnovers have been an issue.
3 apiece so far as Neath spun away from Goldwire, who hauls down the rebound.
That's the definition of a tough shot right there. And that's the definition of an easy shot right there.
Yes, with a very easy one from Goldwire. Matthew Hurt with 9 so far of the 15 for Duke.
This Duke pressure really makes it difficult for you to pass the ball, but you don't want to get into a situation where you're just dribbling it all the time. You want to get your teammates involved. You want to have a lot of movement, but Carter Witt right there, that's certainly a basket that Wake Forest needed, and he did that by himself off the dribble.
Well, when you talk about the Duke pressure, Dan, it's really impressive how Carter Witt has looked so far as Hurt scores 2 more to get up to 11. But Carter Witt, a guy who, again, December 18th was finishing up high school, mid-year enrollee for Wake Forest, starting now on the road at Cameron, looks pretty good in the first 8 minutes. Neath the miss. Goldwire off the bounce. Wendell Moore into the game, off the bench again, and he turned it over. Williamson on the run out and is fouled from behind. So it's been a fast start here at Cameron, 4-point game.
Blue Devils off to an early lead, and Carter Witt, the quintessential young freshman, is in high school in December, and he's already got 2 field goals and an assist today. This is a remarkable story, Mike.
Yeah, he graduated from high school just a few weeks ago, and 5 days after that, a couple days before Christmas, he's practicing with Wake Forest. And you go from hanging out with your high school buddies to getting thrown right into the ACC fire. And Steve Forbes was saying to us that Carter Witt was walking off the court on Wednesday in Charlottesville with a little bit of a smirk on his face. And Steve Forbes asked him about it, and Carter said, well, you know, my high school, they played their first game tonight. And here was Carter going up against the pack line defense of Tony Bennett on that same night.
Yeah, and Carter Witt scored 1 point against Virginia, and Steve Forbes said, well, how many would you have scored in your high school game? And he said, oh, I'd have had 30.
There's no doubt he would have. An excellent player who was in the ESPN 100 for the class of 2021, but of course reclassifies. And now he's here starting for Wake Forest, which trails by 2 at Cameron, a building in which they have not won in more than 20 years. Jeremy Roach gave it up for Wendell Moore, coming off 25, a career-high tying on Wednesday. The mid-range was very effective for him in that game. He misses a long 2 there.
Wake Forest doing a pretty good job on their defensive boards, but they're the leaders in the ACC so far in defensive rebound.
Back iron for Wilkins on a triple try, and Moore on the push, and a turnover. That's a couple of them for Moore so far.
One of the things that Steve Forbes was very worried about was the Blue Devils' ability to get out in transition, and so far the Deacons have done a great job getting back. There have been a couple of transition baskets, but for the most part, Wake Forest has gotten back and set the defense.
Fouls on Mark Williams on the perimeter. Steve Forbes has said that we're probably going to play slower than ideally he would like to play at some point, and that's because going back to the preseason, his team has just turned it over a little more than he would have liked. They only have 3 turnovers so far in the first 9 minutes.
One of the problems with playing a little slower is they don't really have the inside muscle to make that work.
This is 6'9" Odi Oguama going up against 7' Mark Williams, who gets tagged with a second foul, and Oguama will shoot a pair.
And you can see the aggressiveness of Odi Oguama. He can really score with his back to the basket. They don't look to him for a lot of scoring, although he's a big help when he can. But he works really hard. He's a really good defender. He's a good rebounder. He's aggressive, physical, and you saw all those qualities right there.
A guy who's similar to Matthew Hurt, bulked up from year 1 to year 2. And one of the rare returners for Steve Forbes in his first season, taking over for Danny Manning.
Well, if you're going to play slowly, you're going to have to score some on the inside, particularly out of the post position. And Oguama's ability to do that has certainly been a big help.
It's now 9 points combined between Oguama and Musius, some of the front court guys for Wake Forest. And we're tied at 17 at the midway point of this first half in Durham.
Already had 4 ties and 4 lead changes, Mike.
It's been back and forth as Goldwire's runner puts Duke back in front.
Blue Devils continue to try to apply the pressure.
There's a 3 from Jonah Antonio, and that's what he does. He's had 3 games this season when he's had 4 makes from long range.
Well, you cannot go behind the screen on him, and it doesn't matter how far away he is. He's going to catch it and pull the trigger. He's got a very, very quick release. And there's another turnover by the Blue Devils. Look at this. They just can't get out on him. He goes off the screen, but the interesting thing about that play was how quickly he was able to set his feet and get that ball in the air.
It's a quick trigger for Jonah Antonio, grad transfer from Australia, who's playing at his 4th college. Guy's going to turn 24 years old in April, but he has added much-needed scoring from the inside to this Wake Forest team. Carter Witt turns it over, and Duke out and running. Hurt finds Goldwire. And a reach-in foul on Witt in the post.
Really a good play by Goldwire to not pull the trigger on that 3. He had Hurt underneath the basket, so Hurt may have been able to get a rebound, but Goldwire is only a 29% three-point shooter, and he waited till his teammates got down before they started the offense. That's a really smart play.
Goldwire's just been so steady for Duke as he has now stepped into a more starring role as a senior. Off the turnover, this is Antonio. Wanted a second triple. Battle on the boards and a held ball. The arrow favors Duke.
Now Antonio is a guy who can shoot it off the dribble, particularly in transition, but I think he's more comfortable in just a catch and shoot situation. He wasn't able to get his feet set, and I think he was trying to back up beyond the 3-point line. Nice job by Witt to find him, though.
Let's see what Duke does offensively here. 7 turnovers in 18 possessions. And now a 3 from DJ Stewart, the freshman from Chicago, averaging 14 points per game over his last 3.
Like you were wondering what they're going to do. Well, you make 3s, that covers up for a lot of problems.
Stewart's been a good shooter from out there, 37% this season. We'll see what he did against Boston College on Wednesday. Good hands on the outside from Roach. Witt nearly stepped out of bounds. Antonio trying a third time, and this time way off the mark at the expiration of the shot clock.
But again, Duke ran at him and forced him to dribble the ball. I think that's what you have to do. Again, he can shoot it off the dribble, but he's much better in the catch and shoot situation. So that's a great job by the Blue Devils in a tough spot to just get him off. Catches the ball, and that's Goldwire who gets over there and just forces him to take that dribble, and that caused the missed shot. Good defense.
And for Goldwire, that's not a pass you're probably anticipating. A long, ambitious skip like that from Witt as Oguama bumps Roach on the perimeter. But Goldwire is just so good defensively. I mean, the guy, look at him. I mean, he's built as sturdy as a Jersey barrier, and he's really tough to go up against defensively.
Well, Mike, I'm not sure that he doesn't anticipate passes like that. That's one of the reasons why he's such a good defender, is he anticipates the plays.
Great job running Antonio off the line. That one spins out from the corner. Williamson the rebound. Foul as Williamson was on the drive. Will send us to a timeout here at Cameron. Coach K back on the sidelines for Duke, leading by 2. Opponent, Wake Forest, back in 1906 when Duke, of course, was Trinity College. So it got us wondering, well, what was going on in 1906? You can't do the price of gas, so we did the price of hay by the ton, Dan Bonner.
Well, horses got to eat, right? And the tuition, that was fairly inexpensive. And Teddy Roosevelt, the president, the average income $500 a year. And of course, not only was Duke Trinity College then, but Wake Forest was actually in Wake Forest,
where Arnold Palmer, I'm told, was learning how to golf on the 9-hole course in Wake Forest.
Not in 1906.
Right. Important clarification. Yeah, would you believe that with the matchup today, number 254 between these teams, Wake Forest is the most common opponent now for Duke basketball. Another turnover from the Blue Devils.
And the interesting note about that is, coming into this game, Wake Forest and North Carolina had both played Duke 253 times, so Wake moves out ahead, and they're NC State at 250, and they call them the Big Four, and one of the reasons is not only are they all so close together, but they play one another a lot.
And for all the history of these teams down in North Carolina, Steve Forbes was telling us yesterday, this is his very first time, not just in Cameron, but on campus at Duke, and he's got his team in a 2-point game right now. Carter Witt threw that one pretty low off the bounce to Oguama, and a foul on the floor.
Well, we've seen Carter Witt make a lot of really good decisions and good passes, but that was not among them. That he threw that right at the ankles of Oguama, and you can't throw it in traffic to your big guy like that. And as a result, Oguama gets a little carried away and picks up a foul.
And it is the second foul on Odi Oguama. Slice to the basket from Jeremy Roach to score. The freshman averaging 13 points per game in his last 3.
The Blue Devils have made a couple of threes, but they've had their best success taking the ball and driving it to the basket.
Lucius, tough fall-away shot. Rims out, but he draws a foul on Matthew Hurt.
And Jeremy Roach is a guy who's noted for his abilities as a facilitator, but he can score too, and that's just a great drive to the basket. Masood there reaches in. You got to move your feet and get in front of that player and make him stop. We'll look at that on the tape. And Steve Forbes will ask Masood what he was doing, because you just can't reach in.
Hey, coming up next, we'll get you to Chestnut Hill. It's Virginia and Boston College from Connie Forum right here on ACC Network and the ESPN app. Tony Bennett's team at number 22 in the country and coming off a 70-61 win over this Wake team on Wednesday.
Of course, Boston College had the big lead against Duke on Wednesday, but the Blue Devils were able to rally to win.
Jamin Brakefield. He can step out and shoot it. That one was short. And John Shire said that when they turned up the pressure defensively, which is a theme we've been chatting about here in the first 14 minutes, that's when things flipped and that double-digit deficit for Duke started to turn. A foul is called again. This is on Hurt, so that's two quick ones for Hurt. And John Shire picked up that win. It does go to Coach K officially, but it was meaningful for John Shire to step into that role and pick up the team in that spot on Wednesday.
Yeah, it sure was, but I'm telling you, he was very happy to be able to call his boss after the game. Since they pulled out the win, it would have been a little bit more difficult telephone call had they lost.
And they had spent a lot of time on the phone throughout the weeks. Wake Forest down by 2 with less than 6 to go in the first half. Williamson gives Wake the lead again.
And that's really the first time we've seen something that Wake Forest likes to do on offense, and that is penetrate and then throw the ball behind you out to the perimeter. They had great success doing that early in the game against Virginia.
No answer from Duke at the other end from Stewart. Can't connect. Offensive rebound and a big block from Stewart on Adams. Goldwire back the other way. And Musius comes down with it.
That is a great play by Musius. Tipping the ball. I think it was Stewart he tipped it away from.
He's got a lot of bounce to him, tracking down those loose balls. The junior from East Patchogue, New York on Long Island. Wilkins, no on the baseline. Brakefield's got it.
Wake Forest has stayed in the man-to-man, and like I say, they've had some difficulties every once in a while preventing the dribble penetration.
Roach off the bounce, skipped it for Goldwire to connect from deep.
And again, Goldwire just knows when to take that three. He's not a high percentage three-point shooter overall, but he is a high percentage three-point shooter when he has that much time and room.
Brakefield took it away. Stewart behind the back, and a foul is called on Isaiah Musius, his first.
A little bit out of control that time by the Demon Deacons. Trying to take the ball, and this is really a nice job by Brakefield to tip the ball away without fouling. And then he just follows the play and draws the foul.
And a triple drops out of the baseline, out of bounds for Jeremy Roach. And then Roach got his hands in the passing lanes. Belongs to Wake Forest on the other side. Steve Forbes not happy. 5-point margin. So it's been the Duke backcourt stepping up, Dan.
Well, Jordan Goldwire has 7 points in the game. He's knocked down a three. He's also got 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. And Jeremy Roach has come off the bench and played very well, driven the ball to the basket. He's also got a 3, and he has 3 assists. So this Duke backcourt has really set the tone. In their last 10 possessions, the Deacs are 1 for 6 with 4 turnovers. So this last couple of minutes here of the first half is going to be extremely important for a Deacon team that has stayed in the game so far.
Ishmael Massoud draws a blocking foul on Jamin Brakefield. Yeah, it does feel very similar for Wake Forest to the first half that the team had Wednesday in Charlottesville, leading by as many as 12 in the first half and leading by 5 at halftime. Massoud, the sophomore, 6 of 9 at the line this year. Tomorrow it's another Sunday afternoon women's basketball tripleheader right here on ACC Network and the ESPN app. It starts with the number 2 team in the country, Louisville against Clemson, then Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech and Atlanta, and it wraps up with the Demon Deacons playing host to Boston College. So a split at the line for Ishmael Massoud, and Duke with it ahead by 4 in the final 3.5 of the first half. Oh, nice pass by Brakefield. Patience from Moore, and he draws a foul.
Yeah, Brakefield is a pretty versatile guy, and he sees the defense coming. Moore just waits. That is a really heady play right there. He faked, and it's almost like in slow motion. He's watching the defender jump up and go by.
And it leads to the first point for Wendell Moore, sophomore from Charlotte, trying to follow up the 25-point game against Boston College. John Shire said to us, man, he saved us in that game, but it's been a quiet start for him. Couple of fouls, couple of turnovers, and now 2 points here in the first half.
The key to the end of this first half has been the Duke defense. We mentioned Wake's struggles on the offensive end, and it's not self-inflicted. That's the Blue Devils doing it to him. Oh, wow.
Brakefield on the defensive end. He was trying to hound Carter Witt, who scored anyway.
Witt has a little bit of swagger about him, doesn't he?
Sure does. Half dozen for the guy who was in the high school ranks a couple of weeks ago. Moore off the jab step. Swirls that out. Massoud the rebound, and Wake can cut it to 1 possession here. Jalen Johnson from the corner. We have the full contingent of Jalen Johnsons here at Cameron today. Grad transfer from Tennessee, playing for Wake Forest this year. Moore was cutting on the baseline. Good hands from Wake, and here comes Witt. Massoud, the trailer, never gun shy for 3.
Now Massoud had that big game against Virginia. That's his first 3 of the night, or the afternoon, I guess.
Beautiful skip from Goldwire. Gets 2 from DJ Stewart, who's up to 9 in the first half.
Boy, really impressed with the number of different ways that DJ Stewart can score. We've seen him drive all the way. We've seen him a little hop step like that, hit a 3.
Guy who had 24 against Coppin State. Mike Krzyzewski said he is a natural scorer. Nice shot fake from Massoud. Gave it up for Witt. Oh, was out of bounds on the baseline.
But this is a nice job to get the ball quickly up the court. And Massoud, he's ready when he catches it, and that's the key. When you're a big guy like that, particularly a 3-point shooter, and you're following that play and you run to the 3-point line, be ready to shoot it as soon as the ball is delivered, and Massoud was that time.
Seen some quick releases from Massoud and Antonio earlier in the first half for Wake. Stewart trying to show off another way to score. Massoud the rebound with Wake down by 3, 1:10 to go in the first half. Foul on Jamin Brakefield.
You know, Duke, particularly with this lineup that they're playing right now with Hurt on the bench, they are very versatile defensively. They can switch just about every screen and really keep the pressure on you.
Timeout on the floor, back after this. All ACC team will have a complete breakdown of both games, coach, player interviews, 4 Eastern right here on ACCN and the ESPN app. With Dan Bonner, Mike Monaco, and our entire crew here Steve Forbes in his first ever trip to Cameron Indoor Stadium with a very young team, only playing in its 6th game of the season, down by 3 late in the first half.
For the most part, I think he has to be pretty well satisfied with what has happened out here. He's not pleased his team has turned the ball over 8 times, but they forced 9 turnovers themselves. They've been able to get to the free throw line. This will be their 9th free throw attempt. And so they're trailing in the game by just 3 points in the game where Duke is shooting 56% from the field.
We've had 9 Duke turnovers. We have had 8 on the Wake Forest side, as Carter Witt earns another by hitting the first.
Well, the Blue Devils have only attempted 2 free throws in the game, and Wake has now converted 9 in the game.
Witt was good on both, so it's a 1-point margin. Duke with the basketball, winding down this first half. Goldwire off the bounce. Shot clock below 10 for Roach on the drive. Lost it momentarily. Underneath, there's Stewart with 2 plus the foul. Hello, as the ball squirted to him.
Well, he's got a reputation of being a very versatile offensive player, and maybe Mike Krzyzewski ought to put this one in the playbook. Stewart gets it and just flips it up over his head. So yeah, what can't he do on the offensive end?
11 now for the freshman from Chicago, averaging right around 13 a game. Stamps the 3-point play.
I think this is an important possession for Wake Forest.
See what they do with it as Witt getting hounded by Roach. Got by him with a floater. Doesn't go, but an offensive foul called on Witt. Henry Coleman into the game for Duke.
That's one of the things the Duke Blue Devils do very well. You drive the ball to the basket, you have to expect that somebody's going to come and help. And the mistake that Witt makes right there, instead of going straight up in the air after a jump shot, he floats. And so that's when I was talking about an important possession for Wake Forest. You have a chance to score and cut it to 2, and now you lose the ball with another turnover. That's now 9 turnovers on Wake Forest. And so instead of possibly being down 1 or 2 at halftime, you run the risk that you're going to be down 6 or 7.
Yeah, crucial spot, Dan. And if you're Duke and that coaching staff, you got to love what Henry Coleman just did, because Mark Williams and Matthew Hurt both have 2 fouls. So here comes Coleman in the waning minutes of the half, and the freshman steps in and took it.
Well, sometimes it doesn't matter how many minutes you play, but when the coach puts you in the game, clearly he needs you, and so it's your job to go in and perform, and he's very pleased with himself, and he should be.
He did his job on that end of the floor. And Matthew Hurt comes back in with Duke on offense, holding for the final shot.
Wake showing a little bit of a zone.
They let Stewart open. Weak side offensive rebound from Goldwire. Here's Roach. Spins it out. And that closes out the first half.
Boy, that was a fun first half.
Sure was here at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Coming up, it's Kelsey, Jordan, and Luke. And Dan, in the first half, once Matthew Hurt left the game with foul trouble, the guards got involved on both sides, and Carter Witt, he's been impressive.
Carter Witt has been impressive. He has turned the ball over 5 times, but he's really shown some offensive skills, the ability to get in the lane in traffic and make that jump shot. And then he makes this little floater down on the inside. This is a kid that's very creative on the offensive end. And for the Duke Blue Devils, you're right, the guard play has really been impressive. And DJ Stewart in particular, we said he was a versatile offensive player. Well, all he's done is he's hit a 3-point shot. Then down on the other end, he's blocked a shot and takes off on the offense. Then he's able to step inside, a little hop and a short jumper. And then, of course, you know, it always helps when you can play horse effectively. He takes the ball off the floor, gets knocked down, flips it over his head. That was a big turning point in the first half. What should have been a Wake Forest rebound turned into a Duke 3-point play.
9 turnovers on both sides. Steve Forbes isn't going to love that, but it's only a 4-point deficit for a Wake Forest team that's 0-2 so far in ACC action and trying to win at Cameron for the first time since 1997. And that one rolled off the rim for Carter Witt as we start the second half.
Well, but probably the crowd today is about as big as it was in 1906.
There's Matthew Hurt back into the ball game after the 2 fouls right around the 6-minute mark of the first half, and he cans a triple.
Now, Duke came out at the beginning of the second half in the game against Boston College and just took the game over, and Wake Forest cannot allow that to happen here.
Witt found Oguama, who missed it. Musius has been active. And they throw it back out up top. Oguama on Brakefield, who starts the second half, and Oguama scores over him.
Oguama has really done a nice job. He scored with both hands in there. That was an important basket for Wake Forest. Now they need a couple of stops to make sure they keep this game within reach.
They get a foul trying to match up with Hurt. It goes on Oguama, his third.
Well, what did we say? We said if you're going to try to play a little bit more slowly, you need some inside presence, and Odi Oguama has certainly provided that today. That's a couple of field goals now, and both of them have been of that variety where he scored close to the goal.
Not encouraging as he has to check out after picking up that third foul.
Yeah, that does not help.
Stewart tried to kick it for Goldwire. And that's turnover number 10 for Duke, and that was probably the most glaring issue, would you say, Dan, in the first half for Duke?
Yeah, I think so. Wake Forest, though, they're packing it back in a little bit defensively. They're making it very difficult. Stewart that time just left his feet. You don't want to leave your feet if you're passing the ball, and he got himself stuck.
Big no-no for coaches all over the place. Williamson has the speed advantage on Brakefield. Pick and pop with Ishmael Massoud, who's got another from beyond the arc, his second.
You know, Hurt, I think he did what he's supposed to do. He went to help against the driver, but if he's guarding Massoud, maybe that guy who's defending the ball should be on his own.
And then Hurt tried to put it on the deck, and a foul is going to give it back to Wake here.
Is that foul on Hurt?
Sure is. It's his third.
And that's what drives a coach crazy, when your big guy, one of your most important offensive players, picks up a cheap foul like this. Now he loses the ball on the dribble because Witt steps in there nicely and Hurt just knocks him down.
Now Hurt is staying in the game here with the 3, and he was motioning with his left hand like, hey, I got this. Massoud on the drive, count it, plus the foul. And now what do we have here from Jamie Luckey on the baseline?
I don't know, did he call a technical foul on somebody?
Yeah. They're going to give it to Isaiah Musius, it sounds like.
I did not see what Isaiah Musius did. Now that's down there by the Wake Forest bench, but Musius was in the game.
So Masood came in on the drive, got the bucket and the foul. Let's see if we can pick up Musius. Let out of your screen now on the bottom for the celebration right over Jamin Brakefield.
Well, celebration is one thing, but he's taunting. You know, if he goes to Masood and he makes that same movement, then it's not a problem. But standing over Brakefield and doing that's clearly taunting. And so the penalty for that, of course, that's an unsporting technical foul. So the penalty is 2 shots, and then you pick it up at the point of interruption, which is Masood back at the line trying to complete the 3-point play.
So 3 for Masood, 2 for Matthew Hurt because of the technical, and a 1-point margin now.
Well, that's another mistake. You just gave away 2 points that there is no need to give away.
Wendell Moore had a very quiet first half, and he misses everything out of the corner. 3 turnovers, couple fouls, and just 2 points in the first 20 minutes.
Again, a super job by Goldwater preventing Antonio from getting the shot up.
And then a foul comes before the shot as Musius was trying to carve out space. They get it on Wendell Moore. So that's 3 on Moore now.
And again, when Duke is on defense, particularly with this lineup in the game, they're doing an awful lot of switching out there. And all that Moore that's his man, Musius.
Moore gambled on it, and Musius made him pay.
Now, really nice start to the second half by Wake Forest.
Trailed by 4 at the break. It's been a 5-point swing in these first 3 minutes. Good cut by Roach. Off ball, got the feed from Hurt.
And that's a great job by Hurt to turn and look at the basket. He didn't turn his body, but he turned his head, and Roach doing a nice job not standing around watching.
Now Hurt takes it away from Masood. And Hurt leading the break, and then he lost it.
Hurt should not be leading the break. He's a couple of guards down there. Give one of those guys the ball. And that time Wendell Moore ran Antonio off the 3-point line.
You can tell what the scouting report says for Jonah Antonio, number 20 for Wake Forest. Antonio throws it away.
Now, Masood did not do a very good job establishing position on the inside. I think Antonio threw the ball where it needed to go, but Masood didn't get there.
Foul on Jonah Antonio, trying to match up with Wendell Moore in the mid-post area. 1-point game early second half. For number 22 Virginia going up against Boston College. It's a much different feel at Cameron Indoor Stadium. We, of course, Dan Bonner, are not there in person, but I think they've done a great job with this. You see so many cutouts. I love what Duke has done here.
Well, it's amazing what they've done, and obviously for the visitors, it's much better to have those pictures than the real people.
Yes. Steve Forbes was going through with us yesterday all the tough venues that he's played in. And again, if you didn't join us in the first half, first time ever for Steve Forbes in this building today, coaching Wake Forest. And you see at the bottom, Duke has won 21 straight against Wake here at Cameron, going back to 1997 when Tim Duncan was a senior. And Davian Williamson gives the Demon Deacons the lead once again.
Well, that's just great ball movement.
Jeremy Roach was left alone, couldn't capitalize. More the offensive rebound, and it stays at this end.
Just really quickly moving the ball creates the opportunity. The defense has to react, and you move the ball around the perimeter and then drive in, and that's exactly what can happen. Williamson with another really nice penetration to the basket. One interesting note in this game, Mike, is Wake Forest does a great job on the defensive boards, but Duke is already doing a great job on the offensive board. So Wake needs to clean that up, and there's Matthew Hurt with another 3. They really ought to consider guarding him out there.
That's a good strategy because the only thing slowing down Matthew Hurt right now is foul trouble. 7 of 8 from the floor, and that was his third made three. You see he's up to 19 points, right around his average, and then Moore took it away from Witt, leading to Goldwire at the rim.
But just those little turnarounds there in a game like this can be so crucial. Witt needs to give the ball up.
Yeah, he walked right into a trap. Masood helped him out.
Well, but his teammates have to help him. You can see they're putting that kind of pressure on him. Put yourself in a position where he can give you the ball. And that is a great job. Well, he recognizes who's guarding him. Hurt cannot be very aggressive, so he goes right by.
Team high 11 points now for Davian Williamson, the junior and the transfer from East Tennessee State. Hurt continues to go to work, missed that one, and Masood clutches it.
Well, he's got to be really careful banging down there with his shoulder on that post move. He could easily pick up his 4th personal foul.
Pick and pop, Masood is dangerous. Hurt bit on it, Masood on the drive and a blocking foul. Count it for Ishmael Masood.
Masood is not really a driver, but that time he did a great job. This is not a good pass. Had that pass been good, he would have been able to shoot the 3, but he recognizes that he can't get the 3 off and just puts it down and goes to the basket. That is not normally the best part of his game, but that's really something that will make Steve Forbes happy.
Because remember what Steve Forbes said to us yesterday against Duke and how aggressive they are and how much ball pressure they apply. We've got to be able to drive by some guys. And so with Duke so focused on running a shooter like Masood off the line, he shows that evolution in his game right there.
The defense did not rotate over as quickly as the Blue Devils would like. And there, Masood, that's, again, one of your big guys, one of your key offensive players. You just can't pick up a foul like that. That is a cheapie.
He's muttering to himself. Steve Forbes is as well. 49-49 here early on in the second half. Goldwire rises and connects. And Jordan Goldwire's got a dozen, 2 of 2 from deep.
Duke now really trying to pick up the pressure. Williamson is going to handle the ball a little bit, trying to help Witt out.
Williamson kept it himself, nearly walked with it. Musius.
Much dribbling.
Man, he just shoots right through the double team and missed it. Steve Forbes not going to love that shot.
A lot of standing around, a lot of dribbling. The ball's got to move. You've got to force the defense to react. The easiest person to guard is the guy dribbling the ball who's not really going anywhere.
A skip to the corner for Roach. Rebound Johnson. Steve Forbes said to us, it's ball movers on offense versus ball stoppers. We've got to have more of the former. Johnson sinks it, and we are tied once again.
And Johnson is a good 3-point shooter. Coming in on the year, he was shooting 43% from out there.
He's back home in Durham. Spent 4 years at Tennessee. And Roach has just been wide open, and this time he makes Wake Forest pay.
We mentioned earlier, Roach came into Duke with the reputation of somebody who wasn't necessarily a great offensive player, good passer, good facilitator, but he has really shown the ability to score.
Masood got fouled on the 3-point attempt. Goes on Roach. Well, we've gone back and forth so far in this one. Threes, Jalen Johnson for Wake Forest. And it's a Duke 3-point lead thanks to Roach. This is Jalen Johnson for Duke, who is out again for a 3rd straight game. And of course, he's a very talented player. This is his draft scouting report from our very own Mike Schmitz, who does such an excellent job covering the draft.
Well, and you can see this is a very close game, and how much would Duke like to have a guy who, a couple of A's, a B plus, and a C. That's not a bad report card, and particularly a report card for the NBA. That's okay.
Very talented guy. You saw a two-way player for Duke, and out indefinitely, did get reevaluated earlier this week. And John Shire told us yesterday that when we were chatting with him, John Shire had just come from working out Jalen on the court. So an encouraging sign for Jalen Johnson's prospects. Ishmael Massoud at the free throw line, able to tie this thing up at 55 with just under 12 to go here in the second half from Cameron.
You get the idea that this could be one of those games where the first team or the next team to get like a good spurt, a 7-8-0 spurt, that might decide the game.
We've had 8 ties, 12 lead changes. No lead has been bigger than 7. There's Stewart just finding that basketball again and dropping it in with a chance at 3. Been in the right place at the right time.
Well, he just follows the basketball. He's a pretty good rebounder. Drive to the basket, and nobody blocks him out, and he just runs to the ball. And that is the 7th offensive rebound of the game for the Duke Blue Devils. And Wake Forest, they only give up 6 a game. Wake does as good a job as anybody in the league on the defensive boards, but the Duke Blue Devils have been able to score off the offensive rebounds.
And that time it led to the first points of the second half for DJ Stewart, who had a dozen in the first 20 minutes. Massoud, very quick trigger, wide right, and the rebound to Hurt and a foul.
And not only a quick trigger, Mike, but a very, very long trigger. That is not the shot they were looking for in that particular situation.
And to make matters worse, the 4th foul on Odi Oguama. And Dan, you've been talking about how if you're going to come in here and get a win, if you're Wake, you've got to score on the inside, and the guy to show it on the interior has been Oguama, who has to go to the bench now.
And that's a tough break for Oguama. He could have been a little more disciplined, but a bad shot results in that foul.
Williamson picked off the pass for the Demon Deacons. Let's see what the shot selection is like this time. And Witt on the drive, denied by Joey Baker. Baker off the shot fake on the drive for 2.
Now you come off the bench, you're making defensive play, then you come back and get a basket.
Beautifully done by Baker, the junior from Fayetteville, North Carolina. We've seen a tough Mucius turn around amid a double team. That long Massoud 3. Now Witt driving again and finding Jalen Johnson, who missed it. Rolls off the rim but drew a foul.
And you don't have to swat the ball into the stands to make a good defensive play. Baker just jumps straight up in the air, blocks that ball actually with both hands, then hustles down to the other end to convert. That's just a good, disciplined defensive play.
From a guy known for his shooting, he's only played a few minutes so far in this one today. And Roach to the bench. Tomorrow it's another Sunday afternoon women's basketball tripleheader on ACCN and the app. Number 2 Louisville and Clemson, followed by Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech. And then it's Wake Forest playing host to Boston College. Duke by 3 with the basketball, just past the midway point of the second half in Durham. Baker driving again and dumping it off. Last touch by Duke. Wendell Moore disagrees with it.
Well, the official ruled that it bounced off Wendell Moore's chest. That's a tough pass. Blue Devils trying to keep up the defensive pressure.
Massoud. He certainly doesn't lack confidence.
No, he missed that one, but that's exactly the shot you want him to take. The Blue Devils dodged a bullet right there. You cannot leave him like that out on the perimeter.
Nice baseline drive from DJ Stewart, who's got 17.
Boy, it's amazing. Every time the Blue Devils have needed a play, it seems like DJ Stewart has been able to make it.
Back tap will keep it with Wake Forest.
Another situation that time, Massoud was open out there, but he wasn't ready to shoot the ball. The pass was delivered very nicely, so he was going to drive it, but there's that man Goldwire again. What quick hands.
Goldwire's on Carter Witt right now as Hurt gets switched on to Williamson. Isaiah Wilkins off the hesitation. Stewart got a hand on it, and it belongs to Duke. What a play on that end of the floor by DJ Stewart.
Well, not only did he block the shot, but he blocked it off Isaiah Wilkins and then had the presence of mind to get out of the way. Ball's coming toward him, he jumps out of the way. It was out of bounds already anyhow, but he knows that if it hits him out of bounds and that's the first thing it touches out of bounds, then it's off him. Really smart play.
And now he's firing from deep, but he misses. And a held ball on the rebounding action. The Arrow will keep it with the Blue Devils.
Well, that's another offensive rebound for Duke. Duke now has 8 in the game. And in 5 of their previous 6 games, they've had double figures, double digits offensive rebounds. And in the game that they didn't, they had 9. So offensive rebounding has been an important aspect for Duke.
Elmore in particular has been active on the glass, half dozen boards overall for him. Hurt off the shot fake. Misses that. Jalen Johnson the rebound.
I think this is an important offensive possession for Wake Forest. They don't want to let Duke get any further away.
The Massoud three's not the answer.
I thought that was a good shot by Massoud, though.
More on the scoop, no. Hurt is battling underneath. He comes up with a loose ball. Matthew Hurt burrowing down low with a tough 2.
Again, work on the offensive boards.
Almost knocked over Jordan Goldwire coming down the court as well. He's up to 21. Well, when they have needed points, it's been Stewart and it's been Matthew Hurt. Duke by 7. A freshman, of course, on this Duke team. His sister, Elizabeth Williams, was a stud for Coach P here at Duke, 2011 to 2015. Look at young Mark on the left there, and then next thing you know, you grow up and you're a 7-footer, and you are headed to go play for Duke yourself, where your sister was such a standout performer.
Williams has started the last couple of games, hadn't played very many minutes, and must be intimidating to see one of your family members up there in the rafters. That's a great picture of a young Mark Williams.
A very young looking Mark Williams.
Yes.
A mountain of a man on the interior for Duke. He's on the bench here. His Duke team, by the way, has ballooned this lead up to 7. That's as large as it's been on either side, and Davian Williamson cuts into it out of the timeout.
It's very important for Wake Forest to maintain contact here. So that was a big basket by Williamson.
Matthew Hurt's got 21, wanted 3 more. Another Duke offensive rebound. And now Stewart. Back iron and another offensive rebound and a 3rd chance for Duke.
Boy, Duke now has 12 offensive rebounds in the game, and this is exactly what Steve Forbes did not want.
Roach on the scoop. Boy, and if you're trying to come in here and beat Duke, you do not give them many chances.
Now, particularly, they've got some guys who can really put the ball in the basket, very talented offensive players, and as you say, you just cannot give them multiple opportunities.
And all the scoring for Duke has really come from 4 guys, the 3 guards, and then Matthew Hurt. A tie-up right around the elbow with 9 on the shot clock. Arrow points to Wake.
The Duke defensive pressure has really affected Wake Forest's ability to run their offense. It's only a couple of times that we've seen the kind of ball movement that Wake displayed throughout the entire first half against Virginia. And I think you have to credit Duke's defense with that. They've been very disruptive.
Jim Christian, the Boston College head coach, after the loss on Wednesday, talked about how aggressive Duke is defensively, and they don't let you run what you want to. Williamson had a look at it with the shot clock winding down.
So Duke comes down on their last possession, and they get 3 opportunities and finally convert, and then they force Wake into an extremely difficult shot with the shot clock running down.
Post entry for Matthew Hurt. Matched up with Oguama, who's got the 4 fouls. Hurt loves that fall away. Boy, that is pretty.
Again, when he can catch the ball in the low post and make that kind of a move or make a move to the basket, he becomes a much, much more effective player. People talk about a stretch 4 or stretch 5. Well, you can't stretch anything unless you can score inside first.
Wow, an ambitious pass finds Oguama with a much-needed 2 for Wake Forest. How about that?
Ambitious. That is a very good word for that pass. How it got through, I have no idea.
We've talked about the creativity from some of these Wake Forest guards, just trying to find passing lanes wherever they can against the Duke D. A good fake from Roach on the kick for Stewart. Another offensive rebound. Who else but Hurt? Roach on the reload. And a third chance again, and Goldwire converts. And man, that has been the story for Duke. They are fired up at home, and they lead by 9. One got Mike Krzyzewski all sorts of fired up. We came oh so close to a floor slap there, it looked like, from Coach K.
Well, a lot of energy on the part of Coach K, and of course it's easy to understand why. What's he been doing? He's been quarantining, sitting at home. We showed you, watching his computer monitor and texting, so he ought to be all rested up.
10-day quarantine. He found out the news right as he was getting on the team bus in Durham to go to the airport to head down for a game that didn't even end up getting played at Florida State. And so the team had not seen Coach K in person until this morning. Again, he came in at 6 a.m. to get tested. Tested negative, got a pretty quick result back. He has been testing negative anyway. Was at shoot-around at 9 a.m. and coaching up Duke today. Oguama got the offensive rebound and drew a foul in a 9-point game, and that's going to be the 4th foul on Matthew Hurt, who's got 23 points and has helped carry Duke. Our Zaxby's player of the game, Matthew Hurt, as it stands with 4:22 to go. He's been terrific when he's been out there on the floor.
Yeah, he's got 23 points. He's made 3 threes. He's got 6 rebounds. He's got 2 assists. He's got 3 steals. Now, he got Duke started early in the game, and then he got Duke up rolling again early in the second half.
And it blew my mind, Dan Bonner. I will say this, just blew my mind that Matthew Hurt was not on one of the preseason All-ACC teams. I was buying into the hype, but man, he's living up to it so far.
Well, he really finished poorly last year, and I think that was on the mind, obviously, of a lot of the voters. And there's Stewart again, and Stewart has also been fabulous for Duke today.
He's got 17 of his own.
But Mike, the Duke Blue Devils, they've also been wearing out Wake Forest with offensive rebounds. Their 5 possessions, their last 5 possessions before this one, Duke has gotten off a total of 12 shots thanks to their offensive rebound.
Again, that's 12 shots in 5 trips down the floor. That is something. DJ Stewart at the line, splits, so it's still single digits. The deficit with 4 minutes to go. Wake Forest down by 9 in a building they've not won in since 1997. Post entry for Oguama, and he is called for a foul. So Odi Oguama has now fouled out with 3:48 left. Wake's going to be shorthanded down the stretch, down 9. With the 9 points, he was trying to carve out some positioning in the post. Watch his left arm.
Well, he's in the mid-post here. He's been very good in the low post, but he throws that arm out there, and the official, Mark Schnurr, is standing right there looking at it. Now, you can get away with that sometimes if you're in a crowd, but when you're the official can see you. You're right out there in front of God and everybody in the middle of the lane. The official's going to catch you every time.
Mark even mimicked the motion for good measure. So Oguama has fouled out. Duke is up by 9 with 3:48 to go. And Dan, you said this earlier in this half. Whichever team was going to be able to go on a run here would be able to seize control. And this game was tied 55-55. And since then, it's a 16-7 Duke run.
And it's been a run that's been fueled by Duke's defense and by Duke's ability to get the ball off the offensive board. And Wake Forest changing it up, a little 1-3-1. They're probably going to try to trap out of this.
Too much space, though, for Matthew Hurt, who's got a new career high with 26 points today.
When somebody's playing a widely spread 1-3-1 and you can move the ball effectively, one of your guys is going to get a wide open 3. And when that guy's your best three-point shooter, it's a big help.
And then the hands of Goldwire, a 10th Duke steal.
The 4th by Goldwire. That's now 16 turnovers for Wake Forest.
Goldwire nearly gave it back. Shot clock's winding down. Wendell Moore's got it for Duke. Moore, a step back 3. No. Another offensive rebound, and then Musius picks up the foul as DJ Stewart found the ball again.
And Stewart has been really impressive. You know, he's got 7 rebounds in the game now, but this is Hurt. And when he's had time today, I mean, he's been knocking them down. He's 4 out of 7 from beyond the arc. But we have seen him. He scored in the mid-post. He scored in the low post. He scored from three-point range. Matthew Hurt showing a tremendous amount of versatility in his offensive game.
Sophomore from Rochester, Minnesota, who leads the ACC in scoring. Stewart has split at the stripe, 13-point game, 2:40 left. Wake Forest team playing in just its 6th game of the season as witnesses from deep. Playing its 3rd ACC game, coming off losses at Georgia Tech on Sunday and at Virginia on Wednesday.
And think about that for a minute, Mike. They went to play Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech plays that zone that's very difficult to prepare for, and it's a team that just hadn't played very much. And then they go to Virginia that plays that really tough pack line man-to-man, and then they come in here to Duke, and they have a Duke team that's playing a very, very aggressive style man-to-man defense. That's a lot of change for a young team over a short period of time.
Mike Krzyzewski took the timeout, and for Wake Forest, Steve Forbes was saying to us, yeah, we're going up against 3 different types in our first 3 ACC games. And remember, Dan, this team only played 3 games in 37 days because they had a layoff of more than 30 days between games due to COVID, which hit them hard as a program. So now all of a sudden, after 3 games in 37 days, they're getting their 3rd game here in a span of 7 days and still trying to find themselves. They haven't played a whole lot, and this is what it's like for Duke and for Wake Forest, the fewest games played among Power 5 teams.
Well, it's really hard to develop any kind of rhythm or continuity when you can't play. And this COVID business has obviously had an effect throughout the world, not just the sporting world, but throughout the world. But the interesting thing, we hear all this about teams being unable to play with the COVID, but in the ACC, coming into this weekend, there have been 129 scheduled men's basketball games in the ACC, and 105 or 80%, 81% of those games have been played. And not only have they been played, they've been played pretty competitively. Unlike our game today, 17 of the 22 conference games that have been played have been decided by 10 points or fewer, 9 of those in the last possession. So not only are you getting the games played, most of them anyway, but you're getting very competitive atmospheres.
So a one-point game here on Wednesday. We had the game Tuesday, Clemson in overtime over NC State by 4 in that matchup. And this has been close until it got stretched out to double figures here just in the last few minutes. And now still at 13 with 2 minutes left. Williamson has been good off the bounce for Wake Forest. Trying to spin around Hurt. Mucius from long range, no. Masood kept it alive. Belongs to Wake.
Just really impressed with the aggressiveness of the Duke Blue Devils. They go after they've gone after every rebound, every loose ball in this game with the same energy that we just showed you Mike Krzyzewski having going to that last time out.
They've got 15 offensive rebounds. They've got 10 steals in the game as well before they're heading out on the road in ACC play. Williamson charging to the basket, drawing a foul.
Mike, and in addition to all those numbers that you just cited, Duke has blocked 5 shots in this game. And they blocked a total of 5 shots in their previous 2 conference performances. But I think their defensive pressure and their ability to rebound the ball offensively has just finally worn Wake Forest down.
Hey, get the latest news and info from the ACC each morning with special guests from the world of sports. Packer and Durham, weekdays at 7 a.m. Eastern if Dan Bonner can get up in time on ACCN and the ESPN app.
You got to be careful about having people like me on the show. You want to keep the ratings up.
Oh, there's the finish from Stewart off the lob. And just 2 more from DJ Stewart. Up to 21 now. Williamson misses. And it stays with Wake Forest with 1:03 left. It's a whale of a start to the ACC slate for Wake Forest. Part of that, of course, also has to do with the long layoff as they try to find a rhythm. Masood with 2. But Wake Forest started with 3 on the road. They're going to get Louisville at home on Wednesday, then Virginia Tech at home on Sunday of next week. 2 really challenging opponents who entering this week were both 2-0 in the ACC.
Yeah, that's right. They get a break. They get the 2 top teams in the ACC.
Wendell Moore on the drive.
You know, Wendell Moore did not have a good game today, certainly not the kind of game he had against Boston College, but Duke has a lot of weapons, and we've seen most of them on display.
And Steve Forbes still coaching them up in the final 28 seconds, was barking at someone in his huddle. Well, if you weren't with us throughout this one, Matthew Hurt has a career-high 26 points. Now, he has dealt with foul trouble throughout, but that has not slowed him down. He is 10 of 15 from the floor, and he's hit 4 threes.
Well, despite those foul problems, he did play 38 minutes in the game, and you say he's hit those 4 threes. He made both of his free throws. He has 6 rebounds. He's got a couple of blocked shots. He's performed. It's been a very, very good performance by Matthew Hurt. And that's what I'm talking about. Wendell Moore has a great performance the other night against Boston College. He plays rather, poorly by that standard today, but Stewart and Hurt and Roach all come in and they pick up the slack.
Coach K back on the sidelines, and Duke 79, Wake Forest 68. It is 22 straight Duke victories over Wake Forest in Cameron Indoor Stadium. That's how we do handshakes now in this day and age. Coach K and Steve Forbes on their sidelines, and that will do it from Cameron. Final score, 79-68. Top of the hour, we will get you to Chestnut Hill, Virginia and Boston College squaring off at Connie Forum. For Dan Bonner, our producer, Katie Bissell, director Chad Lampman, and our entire crew, I'm Mike Monaco saying so long. Top of the hour, it's Chestnut Hill, it's Virginia and Boston College. But for now, we'll get you to the studio. Kelsey Riggs, Jordan Cornett, Luke Hancock, they're in Studio G. They're the A-team. Duke wins it here in Durham.